feel sick. Breakfast, food. Em ơi, cái ăn không? Ok này. I think I just invented the grilled peanut butter sandwich for sickness. Hope it works.
Chưa bao giờ nghe ai nói là bị ốm mà ăn cái gì bơ lạc khỏi ốm.
So, like when I was like all last night, I couldn't really sleep, and you got all these weird ideas going around, and like all this stuff I've been thinking about recently, and so I mean I don't know, it's so like deep and professional and intellectual, but so I think it was yesterday or the day before I saw these news articles on like ASEAN and something else, these Vietnamese newspapers, online newspapers, about a recent conference that was held at VNU in Hanoi on like Đông Nam Á học, Vietnam, Southeast Asian Studies in Vietnam. And I didn't know there was some international conference on that, but there was a small conference / workshop. And I think it may have been held to promote a new program at VNU in Hanoi in Southeast Asian Studies that I guess was launched last spring. And so they're talking about Southeast Asian Studies and the program. And I got really confused because they're mentioning the need to invest in language study, okay. But then it kept mentioning English. And I was like, what is going on here? And so then I went and looked at the actual sort of requirements and the, what do you call those? Like the output or the kind of the goals, the educational goals of the program of Southeast Asian Studies at VNU. And the top outcome was excellence in English, like, English proficiency. And then after that, it says you'll learn about, the economics, politics, history, culture of Southeast Asia. And then at the bottom was like introductory knowledge of a Southeast Asian language, either Thai or Bahasa. Yeah. And I thought, and so the other interesting thing is when it's talking about all of the, that you'll learn the economics, history, the term there it uses is not Southeast Asia, but ASEAN, các nước ASEAN, all the ASEAN countries. And it really made me kind of think, there's been all of this discussion, in the Western academia from the 90s onward about the shift of the center of, say, Southeast Asian studies from the West to the region. And, here you have something really interesting, a program in Southeast Asian Studies getting established in the region. But when you look at it, it's something very different from what was created or what Southeast Asian programs look like in the West. And
isn't it not supposed to be that way?
I mean, I'm not saying like one is right or wrong, but what's interesting is that, the point of area studies in the West was to get a deep understanding of the languages and cultures of another place, so you could then translate that back into your own language.
Okay, which is English.
Right.
In many ways.
Well, or French.
In many ways, yeah.
Where this is gain a proficiency in English, learn a little bit about Southeast Asia along the way, and there's nothing about, bringing that knowledge back into your own language,
in
right?
this way, like Vietnamese, for example.
Right. Which is really interesting. That's something very different. And, you know, I would call something like this probably ASEAN Studies rather than Southeast Asian Studies, because it's an effort to create people who know something about the region, but not necessarily so that they can engage in in-depth, you know, knowledge about it, or so that they can, based on that in-depth knowledge, to interpret it back to the host society, but more so that they can work across the region or, you know, interact with people through the language of English.
Yeah, I think English has been basically adopted as a working language of ASEAN. So the encouragement of English and English medium programs by many institutions in the region, I think just follow that. Of course, a global trend of EMI, but also just the definition of a working language in the region. So I think there have been a lot of debates and discussions back and forth as to why Malay can be or should be a working language for ASEAN. Yeah, but up to now, English still basically the working language.
But I think like that has important implications for this field of Southeast Asian studies, in that this idea that it's in decline in the West and that the center is now moving to Southeast Asia. I think to some people the idea is, well, that will lead to better, or, you know, maybe sort of more relevant forms of knowledge for people in the region. But in reality, like if this is an approach, you're not really getting to that. You're like, what can someone learn in English? You know, if they're simultaneously trying to like increase their ability to communicate in English, and they're learning about this at the same time, what is really happening? Are you just repeating the things that have already been created in English again? Or, you know, this doesn't seem to me a direction that would lead to something more relevant or more kind of substantial. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then I think I was also reading an article that was written quite a while ago now. I mean, 2002, time's going by fast, by Ariel Hrianto. And it was on like, can Southeast Asian, can Southeast Asians produce Southeast Asian studies, or I don't know, there's something about that. And it's this kind of broad-ranging article. It's absolutely fantastic, I think, in that he doesn't really